This conference will now be recorded.
Welcome everyone to the webinar Learning Lab of Interfaith Partners for the Chesapeake. This webinar Learning Lab is focused on sustaining your green team and planning for succession. And we'll describe what that means later on. I'm Collier Braun. I'm the religious educator with Interfaith Partners for the Chesapeake. And I'm delighted to be accompanied by my colleague Anna Awimbo, who is the Director of Program Development with IPC.
Hi, everyone.
And Anna will be assisting me with fielding your questions and comments in the chat box. So here we go. We're going to talk about how to sustain your team for the long haul and some strategies to do that. And the number two strategies that we're going to focus on are how to have effective meetings and how to plan for leadership succession and having good leadership plans for your team. We're going to organize this learning lab, structure it according to best practice for having meetings that are effective, engaging, and that is to have 1/3 of our meeting inspiring or have inspiration, 1/3 information or sharing time, education, and 1/3 action of actually deciding and determining what we're going to do. So we've structured this learning lab along those lines. So we're going to start right off with inspiration. And last but not least, we're going to have action planning at the end. So I'd like to share with you a story. It's called The Birthday of Laurel. And I selected this story especially for the challenging times in which we live. We all need and are seeking hope for the future. And I think this story really lends itself to that. This was a story told to Rachel Naomi Raymond for her 4th birthday by her grandfather, who was an Orthodox rabbi. And the story is from the mystical tradition of Judaism, from the Kabbalah. So let's just take a deep breath and feel ourselves here, our feet firmly on the ground, earth beneath us, holding us close. In the beginning, there was only darkness, the Ein Sof, the source of life. And then in the course of history, at a moment in time, this world, the world of 1,000,000 things, emerged from the heart of the holy darkness as a great ray of light. And then, perhaps because this is a Jewish story, there was an accident. The vessels containing the light of the world, the wholeness of the world, broke. And the wholeness of the world, the light of the world, was shattered into 1,000,000 fragments of light. They fell into all events and all people, where they remain deeply hidden until this very day. And according to Rachel Naomi's Raymond's grandfather, the whole human race is a response to this accident. We are here because we were born with the capacity to find the hidden light in all events and all people, and lift it up and make it visible once again, and thereby to restore the innate wholeness of the whole world. May it be so. So now we're going to move to the information part. How to build and strengthen your team through having effective meetings. So first of all, it's very important to focus on having content in your meetings that is animated, so they aren't a drudge. You'll be hearing a theme here. So meetings aren't a drudge. So this will motivate people and inspire them to come to the meetings. So I'd like to invite you to enter some ideas that you may have in the chat about what inspires you to come to a meeting, or particularly your green team meeting. And just enter those there. And we will look at them and see what you have to say. Do you see some responses, Anna, to this question?
Maryla is saying fellowship. John says fellowship. Maryla was saying the opportunity to meet new people. I was thinking food.
Yeah, these are great answers. So, excuse me.
Learning new things. Diane says having an agenda for discussion.
Yeah.
Myra says information. You know, people are looking for more information.
That's great. Well, you've covered a lot just right there, and some of those you've anticipated later when we're going to talk about structure and atmosphere of the meeting. But in the content that I mentioned earlier, this 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 is a way to structure your meetings. We've already talked about ways that we can foster excitement, build interest and engagement in coming to the meeting. If everyone has some idea that they're asked ahead of time to bring, or an action that they may have taken. And you may want to do a brainstorm with your green team to create a wish list of ways to make your meetings animated, so you could be implementing some of your ideas in the future.
Yeah, a couple of late suggestions. Pat was saying information on timely matters. I think that's a good point. And Nancy was saying, learning from each other.
Okay, well, I'm going to move right along. The next, we've already asked this question, but just to bear in mind some opportunities for your team to think about in the future what inspires you to keep coming back. So the next aspect of a meeting to make sure it's effective is structure. How do you structure your meetings? So here are some ways that you can structure your meetings so that they're more effective. I mentioned earlier asking ahead of time for people's ideas, so the agenda can be prepared ahead of time. Scheduling a meeting, of course, so everyone can come, or the most number of people can attend at a time and space that works. Oftentimes congregations do schedule a team meeting immediately after worship, since everybody is there, and maybe the coffee hour is occurring, and they can have their meeting or lunch together with the team meeting. Have a clear purpose. Why are we meeting right now? Are we planning an action? Is there something we're going to do together? Make sure to set up an agreed time that you're going to start and finish, and try to honor that, because we all, many of us lead busy lives, so we want to respect people's time. And here's where can be really helpful to assign and rotate roles. It might be the chair of the meeting who serves as a facilitator, but that role could be held by somebody else who may have facilitation skills. As we'll learn later, not everyone has to have all the leadership skills. In fact, no one can have a whole set of them in one person. So having a separate timekeeper is very important, so that the facilitator doesn't have to be worrying about that. Inspiration leader, or rotate that, have a different person each week bring some form of inspiration, a poem, a song, a scripture, or some sort of inspired reading. Thirdly, atmosphere. And Anna mentioned food earlier. That's an excellent way to make your atmosphere more hospitable and fun. Refreshments, and share this responsibility. A quiet space, of course. You don't want a meeting room next to some other meeting room that's rehearsing a loud activity. Comments and ideas are heard. Everyone's voice is respected. And members share what they did since last meeting. I think this is a really great way to encourage people to tell their story, and feel like they have something to contribute from one meeting to the next. It also inspires me. If I have something I know I'm going to report, then I need to get it done. So cultivating community, that's what it's all about. At my congregation, I belong to Seekers Church, Church of the Savior, and our Earth and Spirit group. I look forward to our team meeting because it's a time when we're actually sharing community, and I really love hanging out with these people. So, in addition to all the good things we do, so those are ways for you to create effective, animated, and enjoyable meetings through the content, structure, and atmosphere. So now we're going to shift gears. We're moving rather quickly because we have a lot to cover, but you can always look at the recording later and be able to review this. We're going to shift gears now to sustaining your team through leadership planning and succession planning. So without this kind of planning, there can be some results that are not supportive of your team's success. And one of them can be leader burnout. You know, one leader just stays in for too long and loses momentum, the team loses momentum. And here are some of those results. Ideas can get stale. We don't have enough new ideas coming in. The energy can go down, and really need some fresh energy coming in. Attendance, then, this becomes a kind of cascade effect. Excuse me, if our leaders get burned out and we don't plan for new leadership to come in. So how are we going to do this? Here's one way to make sure that you're beginning to talk about this, is ask around your team, what contributes to strong leadership in a team? Like, what are the qualities of a strong leader do we want? And then decide how we're going to actually help that happen. So let's look at some ways that qualities of leadership can be expressed. Now, this is not an exhaustive list. We did collect these from our trainings of Faith Group Green Team leaders in the past couple of trainings we've had. We collected these from the participants, and these are ways that they could see leadership qualities manifested. And I'll just lift up a few, and there's a second list after this that I'll share with you. I'd say that one really helpful leadership quality is that they can delegate responsibilities and tasks. It's a great recipe for burnout if the leader themselves is carrying on too many of the tasks or carrying the whole load themselves on their shoulders. And I think it's really important that a leader be creative to innovate new ways of doing things. Again, no one person has all these qualities, but here's a few more that people suggested. I would say it's good to have a leader who's motivational and inspires others to participate. And I think it's also good that they're aware of their limitations. I think it's important that they can then say, hey, I need some help. I can't do it all. I need some assistance in certain areas. So these are just suggestions. It's not exhaustive. I'm sure you could add some more to this list. So how do we begin creating a plan for your team to plan for succession? And as I neglected to mention earlier, I think it's really important that when we see that the word succession actually has the word success within it. So one is dependent upon the other. So creating your plan with the team, we already talked about brainstorming what qualities your team needs, and then really hammering out what are the responsibilities of that leader and who do they report to. Some teams may be responsible for submitting a report to the administrative council or equivalent in their congregation. And it's very important to decide how long should the leader be in that position. 1 year is probably, might be too short for them to really get their sea legs and get experience, but 6 years is definitely too long. And we want to be able to begin having someone else moving into that position. And how and when do you talk about bringing in the next leader? At what juncture is it time to talk about these? These are all decisions that your team needs to make for a succession plan, and then write down the process that you decide answering these questions. So choosing a model of leadership is really important to determine who you're going to have as a leader, and how you're going to structure your succession plan. So there's many different varieties, a chair and a vice chair, and then often the vice chair is the person who's going to step into that position when the chair steps down. Co-chairs, which we'll hear an example tonight from Mount Lebanon, of shared leadership and division of responsibilities. That is a great model. And then in others, there's a more informal name of team leader, in which they are the facilitator of meetings, and then there may be task or project coordinators or event coordinators that really take on organizing these actions. And there's probably other models of leadership. Again, this is not an exhaustive list, but deciding what your team wants is very important. So, making a plan. We've laid out many of the steps of how you're going to make this plan, and then actually creating this and implementing it is the next step, and deciding who is next in line to assume the leadership. God forbid, we always say around our work staff, like, oh, if somebody gets hit by a bus, God forbid, then who else is going to be able to take this on? So it's important to know and plan for that, so we're not caught unawares. So making a succession plan. Here are the details of a succession plan, listing the names of your current leaders, the structure you decided upon, the start and end dates, term of position, and deciding a process for how your team will decide this selection of new leaders. Do we have nominations or volunteers, or you want to be more structured and intentional about the qualifications of your leader, and decide who will initiate this process for 1 year prior to the end of the leader's term of position. So that way you can begin to prepare well ahead of that person stepping down. So now we come to a time to test some of our knowledge. And some of you may be familiar with the game called Jeopardy! I'm going to do a little review of what Jeopardy! Is for those of you who may not know. A quiz is something that asks a question and then you have to come up with an answer. But Jeopardy! Is the opposite. It provides the answer first, and then you have to come up with the question. So we're just gonna do a couple of these, and you can come back in later and watch the recording and do a few more for yourself and test yourself if you want to do that. So here we go. We have the categories are effective meetings, animated meetings, and leadership succession. So for 200 points, the answer is facilitator, timekeeper, and inspiration leader. So would anyone like to type in what your question would be?
So Vanessa saying team is the question.
Say again, please. Could someone please mute and make sure your phone is muted? Okay.
Yeah, I just put Vanessa on mute. But she was saying, so another question, Kathy's saying, what are the roles of people on an effective team? Myra saying, what is structure? How can you share leadership?
Yes,
From
what
Linda.
are the roles of a team? And that is part of the structure. Thank you.
What is the job description of a team leader? From Arlene. So lots of suggestions.
Good. Wow. There we are. The answer and the question that goes to it. Thank you for all your contributions. So if you were to play this game, these are other answers, and I'm just going to choose one, so to see if we have another question that somebody can match to the leadership succession category. What is a process for choosing a leader? Okay, anybody type in the chat?
Nominations.
Okay, that's one possibility. It's the process itself that I was talking about earlier.
What is a succession plan? From Donna saying volunteering. Wow, they're coming fast and furious. Muriel is saying, what is something every team should have?
Wonderful. These are actually, all of them are great answers. The top one that gets the points would be, what is a succession plan? But all the other ones were totally relevant. Thank you. All right. So you can peruse that later if you'd like to come back and watch the webinar and see if you can come up with the questions that match any of these answers. So now we've moved to the portion of our learning lab in which we're going to feature two congregations that are really have focused on their own teams and the ways that they can express leadership and sustaining their team through support of one another and various other ways that they keep their team together and strong for the long haul, because that's the focus of this learning lab. So I'm going to introduce the leaders from Mount Lebanon Baptist Church, and that the leaders there, the co-chairs, and they can talk a little bit about their leadership as co-chairs and how they do that. Thank you. I think that fixed. Do we have Tanwa still on?
Kalia, you need to share your screen again. I think it got turned off.
It got turned off. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, all right. Oops, boy, we got.
Wonderful.
I wanted to get back to the team here. Okay, here we are. There's the team. Beverly, are you there? Did we lose Beverly?
Yes, I had muted because you had feedback and Tom was supposed to speak.
Okay.
But since she might have hung up and is going to call back in, but I'll just get started. And we were speaking on keeping our team together.
That's right.
So some of the things, she has extensive notes on this. I don't, but I'm going to go ahead and talk about some of our actions that has kept us together. We have a 16-year-old on our team. She wrote a flyer. She's also a Girl Scout. She's working for her medals and everything, and she wrote a flyer for the Green Team about the proper management of water. And during one of our activities, everybody wanted a copy of that flyer. So she did try to make enough to get out to other people. When we planned on having the blessing of the cistern on the 26th of April, So that didn't happen. We're going to postpone that to hopefully next year. We also
There's the
had
system.
stencil training, and also in this time period, we were going to go out and we surveyed the area around the church, and we picked 10 drains that we were going to stencil. And of course, this interfered with that too. We did come together last week. That was something we can do, and we'd observe the 6 feet, and we also had a mask on. But we needed, now that it's warmer and the weeds were attacking our rain garden and our planters on the side. You can't see the planters because we're hiding it in the picture. And one of our members, I'm not sure if he's in the picture, he is the president of the community center, the Liberty Square Community Center, which is the area that the church is in. So he is also on the green team. So he can get information to us and to them to let them know what's going on in the community. So we've had several movie nights in the church. We try to do things to draw the congregation in. And like you say, right after service. So we had our movie night right after service. In addition to that, some popcorn and soda, or took them downstairs for sandwiches. And, you have to encourage them with food and do it on their time. We did have a very successful bus ride. I think Stuart is on the line. I don't know if he can hear me, but about 33 people were from Mount Lebanon, but the whole bus was full. And we did have a tour. We went to other churches and other facilities who had put rain gardens in and cisterns and did things to green up their church. So, Tanwa, did you get back on?
If she didn't, I had some notes
Okay.
from our conversation with her. I could share. I could wait for a minute.
Okay.
Could you say how you and Tanwa do a co-chair leadership? Because I don't think every team has that.
She just tells me what to do, and I just do it.
Well, if that works, that's great.
Now we like, actually a lot of things we do together. Like, the reason why we got on the green team is Pastor sent the email out about a walk. So we're on another team at church called the Health Freedom, which is a walking group. And so we thought this was another walk. So we said, okay, fine, we'll go take this walk. And we didn't know that we were in for the rest of our lives. So that's how we got into it. Thought we were just going to take a walk. So we've been walking since 2017.
Okay.
But we tried to go to the different churches together.
Yeah, that's great. Well, one thing I remember Tanwa did mention, there's 2 things I want to lift up, which I think are great practices that your team does. One is that you, way before all the challenges we're facing right now, way before that, you folks were meeting by conference call. And I think that's what most people have to do now, or by virtual video call. So
yeah,
that's one thing I'd like to hear about. And the other thing that she mentioned, I'd like to hear about, if you could say anything along the lines of sending out a word of inspiration to the members every week, as a some kind of inspiring thing to keep people going via email. And the last thing I remember is that Tanwa said that you often make an assignment, like the webinars that we have, these Learning Lab recordings, that your team divides them up and people can watch them and then report them to your team about what they've watched, so that the burden of that doesn't fall any on one person, but everybody gets to share. So
yeah,
go ahead.
We assigned the webinars each month. 1 or 2 of us are on the webinar, and then at our next meeting, that person will come back and report. And like Mark and Janelle and Reverend Parker, he's our senior assistant minister. He's about 85, 86 now, but he's always there with us, and he always goes with Mark. They went to the last meeting and came back and reported at our meeting. So we try to not have the same people do the same thing all the time. And with the pulling the weeds, this first time, since this was the end of the winter and the beginning of spring, we knew we had a lot to do. But now each week, 1 or 2 people will go out and water the planters and pull the weeds. So we have a list that we follow. And if somebody can't do that, somebody will substitute and switch up. So
That's great. You know, I want to thank you for pinch hitting Beverly I'm sorry Tanwa couldn't get back on, but you really covered a lot of great practices that your team is doing about your shared leadership, shared responsibilities, keeping the team going, meeting in ways that work for everybody. Tanwa mentioned that, you know, it's better for folks to meet in the evenings by conference call rather than be out driving at night. So that there are a lot of ways you've done accountability by making assignments and folks reporting back to the team. So I want to thank you and all of your hard work there and your care for God's creation, exemplified by all the actions you're taking. And we're going to move on now to our next congregation example, unless you have any last thing to add.
Another thing that makes them happy that we do, we all have green team shirts and name tags. So whenever we're going to visiting churches, there's no question of where we're from and what our name is. And new members came on and they wanted their t-shirt, their shirt, so that they could be known. So that makes them happy.
Thank you for mentioning that.
You see in the picture that's shown.
That's great. I think
you see the picture at the bottom now.
Yeah.
Those are the shirts.
Fantastic. That's a great way for your team to feel a sense of, you know, togetherness and real commitment. So thank you. It's a great idea for other teams to follow your example. All right. Well, now we're going to move on, and thank you so much for your time and contributions.
Yeah, I think they're moving on to something else. I'm so sorry. All right. You just keep watching. All right. Bye.
And I want to introduce our next, pardon me?
Okay.
Our next green team example from Adat Shalom Synagogue. And Stuart Simon is the leader there, and team member Mirla Goldsmith. And I believe Stu is on too. If he wants to chime in, we can hear him as well. So take it away, Mirla.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be on this call. And Beverly, I wrote down all your good ideas to take back to my congregation. Thank you so much for that. So I thought I would just tell you my story as a Green Team member. I moved to the area 2 years ago, and I was looking for a way to get involved in the community, and I went to a meeting of the Montgomery County Faith Alliance for Climate Solution. And at that meeting, I happened to start speaking with Stu Simon, the chair of our Green Team. And I was just really impressed with his vision, and I was excited about working with him. And as it turned out, he explained to me that at the time, our congregation had done a lot of sustainability projects in the past. The one that was still ongoing was working on a garden. But he was interested in working on climate change, projects that would address climate change and advocacy around climate change. And together, we decided to start a subcommittee of the Green Team that would work on those issues. And I particularly wanted to mention that because, you know, you may have people in your congregation who are interested in doing different things. Everyone doesn't have to work on the same thing. Next slide, please. I wanted to focus on 3 things that have been useful to us. So the first is emphasizing the positive. So of course, working on climate change is tough because it's a very scary topic and it can be very overwhelming for people. And it also can be somewhat guilt-inducing. So you really have to focus, and we felt that we really had to focus on the positive. And the positive is really what people can do and helping people to do things. So we felt that it was important to build in some kind of action in every single meeting, so people would feel that they're actually taking action, even if the rest of the meeting was about business or planning for the future. So at every meeting, we save 10 or 15 minutes at the end, where we take advocacy action by writing letters either to the county officials, to our state officials, or our members of Congress. And that's really worked for us. Next slide, please. Let's see. So our first project, which is really what attracted me to get involved with the Green Team, was to sign up members of the congregation to participate in the new community solar program in Maryland. And this is a photo of a sign that we put up in the lobby of our congregation for Hanukkah, showing the names of all the people who had signed up. We realized right away that just putting announcements in the newsletter or sending out emails wouldn't get anyone to participate, that we needed to share our enthusiasm face to face. And this turned out to be a great way to build our Green Team, because as we got out and spoke to members of the congregation, we met new people. They were infected. I shouldn't say infected these days, but they caught our enthusiasm, and people decided to get involved. Next slide, please. This is just a map from social network theory, which has made a big impression on me. Researchers have found that the average person is connected to 2,000 other people within 2 degrees, which is really amazing. And they've actually found that we sometimes have more influence on this person, the 2nd degree person, not the person we actually know, but the next person. So just by getting out and sharing your enthusiasm is a great way to get other people involved. And we were able to grow our Green Team by sharing that enthusiasm. Next slide. Thank you. So we actually signed up 65 people for community solar. And one of the things that we did is we actually went to see the solar field, which is built on a landfill in Prince George's County. And we had our own dedication there. And celebrating, of course, is one of the really important things to make people feel involved and happy about being involved in the Green Team. This campaign actually also established the basis for us to go on and do some things that were maybe a little bit harder that we didn't think we could do at the beginning. We actually kicked off an advocacy campaign, which we started by doing a legislative briefing. We invited our state legislators to come and speak to us in the congregation. And that also was fantastic for the members of the Green Team, because it provided a lot of things for people to do. People had to make the contacts with the members of the legislature. They had to invite people. Someone had to host. Someone had to bring the refreshments. So it really provided for a lot of opportunities for people to participate. Now, the third thing that I wanted to mention was making your efforts visible. A lot of the greening things that we do in congregations take place behind the scenes, and people don't really know about them. You need to make them visible in order to generate buzz in the congregation, to let them know that you're accomplishing something, that you're doing something, but also to make the Green Team members feel good. No one's going to tell them how great they're doing if they don't know about the things that are happening. So one of the things that we do is we take a lot of photos. A photo is worth 1,000 words. Also, we know from psychology that photos that include human faces are what really speak to people. We are evolution, evolution has designed us to respond to people's faces. So a picture of a tree, no matter how beautiful it is, doesn't have the same impact as seeing the faces of other people in your congregation who are engaged and involved. That makes other people want to get involved. You'll probably notice that I showed you photos of our Green Team, but I wanted to point out that we take photos not only of our events, and our successful things that we did, but also even just when we're having a meeting. you know, if you have an announcement about your meeting and it shows the people who were there, it's a lot more impressive than just we had a meeting. And you can always make a sign to put into the photo that tells the story of what's going on. So here we went to Annapolis for Environmental Lobby Night, and we made a sign that said Adat Shalom, so when we showed the photo, people would know what it was all about. Another thing you can do is just collect signs from different rallies and things that you go to and hand them out at the meeting, and everyone holds one, and then it's obvious that this was a meeting of the green team. So I just wanted to end by saying that, so from the two of us 2 years ago, me and Stu, the team has really grown and become very strong and active in the congregation. At the beginning, Stu was the only one willing to take leadership. Now we have a co-chair, and we're actually able to implement what Kolya was talking about as far as succession. So thank you very much for listening.
Oh, thank you so much, Marilla. You've given us even more ideas to for our teams to be more effective and attract new members and to be an exciting place to be doing things. So thank you. Well, now we've come to the point in our learning lab for questions. Folks, if you haven't already been typing your questions into the chat box, now is an opportunity to do that. Questions to any of the presenters or just in general. Maybe there's somebody here on the Learning Lab that's joined us that has an answer to your question based on their experience too. So Anna, do you see some questions that we might hear about?
Kolya, can you just unmute folks and turn our videos back on and turn off the slide?
Yeah, so I think each person needs to turn on their own webcam. So feel free to turn on your webcams and chime in. And you can unmute yourself when you're asking the question and then put yourself back on mute.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can handle webcams, but I can't handle people's mics. So. Yeah, so Marilla was asking, how are people keeping teams going virtually?
That's a great. Just so you know, you've turned off everybody's webcam. We can't turn them back on.
I had checked it, so did it come on now?
No. Nope.
I'll do that again. Sorry about that.
Here we go.
Okay. Just there's a little bit of a delay.
There you go.
So I'll start off and then anybody else can chime in, but one of the ways that we've learned, for the simplest way, Mount Lebanon has already been doing is to schedule a conference call and meet that way. We also have supplied, and we have on our green team, in our green team pages, there's how to keep a meeting. And there's a number of platforms that are available, you know, Zoom. There are various ways that people can do virtual video calls like we are doing now, GoToMeeting. So those are some ways that some of the groups are meeting, like they'll schedule, suggest everybody watch an environmental film on their own, and then they schedule a call together to discuss that film, what they've learned from the film, and how could they implement actions based on the film. That's one of the actions, and we have a number of other suggestions on our website that people can do during this time of COVID. I think Jody, you're saying something?
Does anyone else have any ideas they want to add?
Yeah.
I'm just curious if others on the call have ideas to add to that as well.
Yeah, you'll need to unmute
as far as
your
how
mic.
They're keeping their meetings going virtually.
Exactly. Yeah.
It is. It's unmuted.
I'm talking to everybody else. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else that wants to answer Jody's question?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So our teams meeting.
Yeah, I've been hearing of Teams meeting, and there have like just the suggestion I just made. Another one is that they've been talking about. I just spoke with Vanessa Kirkwood at Still Meadow Community Church, and they're meeting their conference call to talk about people and their home properties. What can they do on their home properties about planting trees or planting pollinator plants? And so the collective effort can expand beyond the congregation to those who happen to be property owners. So there's ways that they can still be having a ripple effect and do things as families or homeowners can do. Another example is, I had just one other example to share in which the congregation green team was so inspired by last month's or our webinar learning lab on zero waste that they're making a plan now via their Zoom calls to go zero waste with the steps that are laid out in that zero waste learning lab.
Yeah, so we're getting lots of suggestions in the chat box. I can see Rosie at Geneva Presbyterian was saying that watching an environmental movie is a good idea. And I think that's brilliant because actually the DC Environmental Film Festival is all virtual right now. So Kolia, maybe after this learning lab, we can share the link again so that you can watch it together as a team wherever you are. And Mirla was also saying that they did a virtual education program on green investing.
Great.
That's unique. Do you want to say a little bit more about that, Mirla?
Actually, Earth Day turned out to be a great inspiration for our green team, and showed that we can still keep doing things. So people in our green teams, stepped up, and they arranged a panel discussion where we had like a socially responsible investment advisor and someone from Green America speak. We got a really good turnout of people who I think probably wouldn't have come to a live meeting, but it was convenient to come by Zoom. And then we also we had everyone, we invited people to watch a film, The Human Element, which they were offering for free for Earth Day. And then we just had a discussion session online, and a rabbi participated, and it was really great.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
I can see, sorry.
Okay.
No, I was going to go to another question.
One other idea was along those same lines, having a book discussion group where everyone has read the same book, and we have a list of books on our resource page where you can, look at their categorized in spiritual resources and ecology and various ways of climate change, climate justice. Yeah, go ahead, Anna.
Yeah, so I saw Donna just put in the chat box that, and I think this is St. Thomas, is that right? Yeah,
that is
so they just completed their garden yesterday, and she's wondering, the usual response. Do you want to chime in, Donna?
No, it's just our usual response would be a party with wine. That's a little tricky right now, so I'm looking for alternatives because we had 2 people in particular just did a fabulous job, and then several other people helped out, and we need some way to recognize and celebrate this, other than a standard wine and cheese party.
Yeah, so I just got invited to a Zoom happy hour. I've never done any of those, but that could be an option.
Okay.
There could be, I'm actually planning a special party for someone along these lines. There could be someone who, one person goes to the site and actually films it or is on video, and then everybody else is with them. They could see them doing this, so that you're kind of partially there anyway, viewing the site, and have a ritual of celebration, dedication together online. You can, use prayers and liturgy. We have some dedication liturgies for rain gardens, for tree plantings, and various things like that.
Yeah, our rector is waiting for the bishop to say when people are coming back to church, because she'd really like to be able to do it physically in the, I think probably if it's within this month, that may be what she wants to do. But it feels very incomplete now. The plants are in, but the next step hasn't happened. So,
Right.
so
Exactly.
she's aware. I know she's planning to do the blessing and dedication, but yeah. So any other ideas I would really welcome, because it's probably time to get out of our rut of wine and cheese parties in person. So this may be a good thing.
It's certainly lowering our carbon footprint.
Right. And we did take photographs yesterday while we were planting and afterwards. And
That's
one of
great.
our youngest student is putting the picture of her planting the last plants on her high school newspaper. So, and explaining it's for a pollinator garden and da. So it's great, but it feels like we need another step here.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, perhaps a whole kind of slideshow could be put together, with various, people have been engaged in that process.
That's
That could be
possible. Okay.
one way for people to see the whole project over time, maybe how it's changed and
Yeah.
the culmination of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Liz,
Well, congratulations.
Well, thank you. I'm what?
take lots of pictures.
Yeah.
We will. Lots of pictures is a great idea. You're absolutely right. Okay.
We definitely use pictures in this format. So, anybody else? Anna, any other?
Yeah, it looks like Liz had a suggestion. Did you, Liz, you held the webinar, or did Neighborhood Sun host the webinar?
Neighborhood Sun hosted the webinar, and we combined with two other groups, my environmental group, HOCO Climate Action, and Transition Howard County, and then my church. We didn't have a good turnout. The publicity just didn't quite get there. But we did that, and then we want to hold the story of stuff, or story of plastic. That was a TV premiere on Earth Day on the Discovery Channel, and they're offering free community screenings where you send out a link prior to it, and people watch it on their own, and then the day of the event is when you have a panel or discussion about the movie. So I'm going to work with my environmental group and the green team to try to get a local one with all the different environmental groups in Howard County. In fact, they're holding one right now with legislators. They really wanted all the state legislators to watch this movie because the bag bill didn't get any, didn't make it out.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, we're going to prepare for next year. And I'm curious, did the earlier one you held, was it recorded? The one you said you had low turnout for, but.
Yeah, they recorded it. I don't know if I have the link for it yet. Unfortunately, at least in BG&E for Howard or BG&E territory, Neighborhood Sun doesn't have any active farms going on right now, unless you're low to moderate income. So it's closed unless it's low, and then we're trying to figure out how to reach out to communities, diversity. That's one of our issues.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, once you get the recording, that might be another opportunity to do some outreach and share that those who weren't able to be on the original.
Right. And then they also did my local environmental group, HOCO Climate Action, works with the Sunrise group, the youth in Howard County, and they did 5 presentations for the Earth Day live stream. And then we had asked if Neighborhood Sun wanted to do that, a webinar on community solar. They didn't get into quite so much detail as to more explain what it was. but that's on the HOCO Sunrise YouTube channel. So.
Well, great, thanks. You're doing a lot considering the limitations we're facing.
Right, but I think I'm one of those burnout ones. So this was important for me.
Oh, good. Yeah. Anyone else? Well, I
There's
know
a
we're
couple
coming
of
up to
more suggestions in the chat box for Donna. I don't know
Yes.
if you've been looking at those. Okay, good.
I certainly am. I love the drive-by idea. And we're working on getting a map showing which are the different plants. And I think your idea, whoever's idea it was, to invite people to plant at least one of these plants in their own garden in honor and continuing that work. I think these are some super ideas. Thank you. I'm so glad I asked you all.
great.
Yeah,
Glad
and it looks like Linda Coyle from what's your congregation, Linda?
It's Evangelical Reformed United Church of Christ, but we say ERUCC.
Yeah, so ERUCC, you watched the film Cooked and then had a Zoom discussion.
Yep. We had about
Great.
10, 12 people for it, so that was good. But what came out of it, it was, I don't know if anyone else has watched it, but it's really about the intersection of both climate change and social justice, the effect that climate change is having on disproportionately on people with less means to handle it. And in Cooked, it was about the heat wave a number of years ago, but how people didn't have air conditioning, they didn't feel safe going outside, and they had to close their windows, and a lot of people died. But but that just translates into everything else, you know, whether it's hurricanes or floods or the COVID virus. So one of the things we were looking at was one of the reasons people are more at risk is because of food deserts. So not having, so they have more underlying health conditions because of not having good nutrition. And so there's a group, Frederick Food Sustainability Project, that runs community gardens and provides food to the community. So we're looking into working with them. I'm not sure how it's going to work, you know, during this time, but I have a meeting next week to find out, and people are interested in trying it if we can do it with the social distancing and safely and all that. So that's something we're working on.
Donna, I think Rosie wanted the full name of your congregation. Is it St. Thomas Episcopal
Church in Owings Mills, Maryland. Yeah.
And yeah, so St. Thomas Episcopal Church in Owings Mills, Maryland, Rosie.
I'm cognizant that we're at the top of the hour already. Did you want to take one more, or shall we?
Yeah, well, just one last comment, and this goes into our next webinar. Joan Eastlack is going to be presenting, and she is with Christ the Servant Lutheran Church in Montgomery Village. And their project hasn't started yet, but they're planning on taking lots of pictures and adding other information about the process for a learning presentation. So I think that's, I guess, an example of planning, you know, even before the project takes off.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Joanne. I really appreciate you chiming in on that. Well, this has been great. We've got lots of ideas, and I don't know about you, but remembering all of them all at the same time might be challenging, but you can always watch the recording later on to refresh your memory, and really appreciate everyone's time and energy, and, you know, God be with you, keep you safe and well, and remember, in the words of Rachel Naomi Raymond, that we are all here to be healers of the world. So thank you very much, everyone, and be well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Good night, everyone.
Hey, guys.